The Supreme Court of Appeal has upheld President Cyril Ramaphosa's decision to recognize Misuzulu kaZwelithini as AmaZulu king. Ramaphosa and the king had approached the SCA in a bid to overturn the Gauteng High Court's decision, which found the recognition irregular. President Ramaphosa officially recognized King Misuzulu kaZwelithini as the Zulu monarch in March 2022. But then the Pretoria High Court ruled in favor of other members of the Zulu royal family who opposed Misuzulu becoming king. Today, the court ruled that Ramaphosa had indeed followed procedure in the recognition process. Royal Zulu historian Shalo Mbatha joins us now for more. A very good afternoon to you, Shalo. Thanks very much for your time. Not a real surprise for you, I suppose.
No, first and foremost, I'd like to greet His Majesty King Misuzulu in Ndlunkulu, Izinduna Namakhosi, and say I'm not surprised because once again we find ourselves having to deal with matters that have got to do with the traditional legitimacy as well as customary law. And the court had no alternative but to agree with the president, because the president is not in a position to decide who is the rightful heir. Just a quick background, Vuyo. His Majesty was born heir, and all the processes that recognize him as such were done before the letter was given to the president. Can I say maybe the court, it was an overreach for them even to think that they could have come to a different conclusion? Because remember, His Majesty was born to a princess from Swaziland. Similarly, every royalty, at least in the Zulu culture, if you are royal, you always give birth to an heir. The late king's sisters, when they married, they also bore heir. One is Imampondweni, the late Princess Nonhlanhla Wandebele. Equally, she bore an heir. So there isn't really a matter of confusion or anything to discuss, really, because it's a straightforward matter. And that is why the royal family was waiting with bated breath to hear what the court was going to say. And actually, when the Zulu people, especially the family, had already made a decision.
Where do you think the confusion may have arisen?
It's, I said last time, you know, in life, people take chances. They never know, you never know, you're like in a big city, as they say. Somebody said there and thought maybe they could just try and change history. But unfortunately, with the Zulu system of kingship and heir processes, it's very strict, it's very clear. Everybody is in lockstep as to what's supposed to happen. Once again, no one else in the Zulu family could have been an heir because his mother, His Majesty, the king's mother, is a princess. So all other children that were born outside the princess do not stand a chance of being a king, not in any lifetime, not in this one or ever.
How much, going forward, should we perhaps, or can an argument be made that perhaps we need to write our history so that, such incidents, to avoid such incidents going forward?
You know, I'm taking time out to respond because whether we write it down or not, it is very clear. Remember, we're the custodians of our own history. The writing purpose only came after our lives were disrupted by colonization. Of course, we can write it down. I'm halfway writing that book, as a matter of fact. But I'm doing it for posterity. But the Zulu people will never be confused about this. You see, we cannot then trust a book without sticking to the truth. Because what if somebody else writes a book and decides not the correct processes should be followed? Should we then say no because it was written down? I'm saying this in the light of I'm taking my time out now to write, and luckily, in fact, for us now, this process happened now, and we're able to use the examples of what has happened recently, so that we do not have to waste time anymore, I guess, to go to court. because there is no need. The Zulu know their history. As a matter of fact, you know, in all Zulu households, when children grow up in their private homes, even before they know their own personal surname, they are taught about Izithakazelo Zelembe, King Shaka. And then they tell them what King Shaka did and how he brought about to create this big empire. So you can imagine that in every Zulu household, history is central, much more than any other thing, actually.
Good luck with that book. Looking forward to reading it. Shalo Mbatha, a Royal Zulu historian, reacting to that Supreme Court of Appeal ruling that has set aside the High Court order, which invalidated President Ramaphosa's recognition of King Misuzulu kaZwelithini and replaced it with an order dismissing Prince Mbonisi Begithemba kaBhekuzulu's application with costs.